Hi everyone, I'm Adam, and this is Aaron. Oh yeah, you want to wave some more? Aaron is what the mommy blogs call a Velcro baby. Oh yeah, he wants to wave some more. Velcro baby means that if I'm not physically wearing him in the carrier, he will get very upset. He's at that point of separation anxiety. Aaron needs to fall asleep for a nap. But if I try to dim the lights and put him down and lie him down and turn on lullabies and things like that, yeah, you want to keep waving? If I do all those things, he will just laugh. And he will get up and he will go back to playing and he will get even more tired and he'll get more fussy after he's done playing and it'll just keep cycling and getting worse and worse. He needs a nap so that we can both be recharged. Anyway, one of the few ways that is surefire to get him to take a nap during the day is to have him in the carrier, being physically held, and for me to drone on about some topic verbally. Which brings me to why I'm here. I might as well just spend the next half hour or so droning on to him about the United States geography and the map of the Amtrak National System. So the first thing we would need to do that is we need a map of the United States. So let's draw one. We've got Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. You okay there, buddy? New York. New Jersey. While I'm at it, I should draw Long Island, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. With me? Pennsylvania. Maryland. That's the state we're in now, buddy. West Virginia. Virginia itself, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, and I'll draw the Upper Peninsula later, Illinois, Tennessee. No, you want to push away? Okay. North Carolina. And you know what? Let's see if you can still see if I turn this light out. Yeah, that's not too bad. South Carolina. Georgia. Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Lake Pontchartrain, Delta, there we go, Florida, Panhandle, Lake Okeechobee, and the Keys. Let's keep going. We need to have Wisconsin, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, didn't forget that. Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Minnesota, and the northwest angle, there we go. Alright, so that's the eastern part of the country, up to and including the states on both sides of the Mississippi River. And now let's do Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Mexico, Colorado, the Dakotas, north and south, Wyoming, Utah, Arizona, Montana, Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington State, and of course California, Bay Area. There you go. So that's the 48 contiguous United States. And Aaron seems to be excited by a doorknob underneath it. But let's see if he'll take his pacifier. So we can draw on a few other things. These won't be relevant to the Amtrak system, of course, but you've got, of course, Alaska. And this is not going to be quite to scale because Alaska is the largest state. You've got Hawaii. And of course, you've got Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands. In the Pacific, you've got some territories like Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, American Samoa. And of course, these are not really to scale out here relative to the United States or each other, but they are there for show. And then, of course, you've got the District of Columbia in here. So, that's a map of the U.S. And I guess it looks a little bit of a weird angle with the tilt of the camera, but we're just getting started. Alright, let's draw the Amtrak system in here, shall we? So you got the Downeaster going from Brunswick to Boston North Station, B-O-N. You also have the Northeast Corridor, home of Northeast Regional and the Solid Express, going from B-O-S, that's Boston South Station, through Rhode Island, the Shoreline on Connecticut, New York City, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and ending in Washington, D.C., W-A-S. And of course it goes through NYP, which is New York, and PHL, which is Philadelphia, also goes through New Haven, Connecticut, NHV, those are where the routes split and merge. You'll see. Going south of D.C., Northeast Regional service continues through Alexandria. It splits at just south of the Alexandria station, a place called AF. And you got some trains that go down to Richmond, you got trains that go down to Newport News, you got trains that go through Richmond and go down the peninsula up to, or the peninsula is Newport News. You have trains that don't go down the peninsula but also serve Hampton Roads by going to Norfolk, NFK. And when the tracks split at just south of Alexandria, you've got trains that go southwest and end in Roanoke, RNK. And then, of course, beyond that, you have other trains that continue south. The Carolinian goes south of Richmond and Petersburg, and then it splits from the Florida Silver Meteor route at Selma Smithfield, goes to Raleigh, turns south at Greensboro, and ends in Charlotte, North Carolina, CLT. And between Raleigh and Charlotte, North Carolina, funds some additional trains called the Piedmont, which go from Raleigh to Charlotte, so I'll put in Raleigh, RGH. Want to continue south, there's a train called the Palmetto. It takes this route from New York all the way down to a place called Selma Smithfield, North Carolina, SSM. And it keeps going south. It goes through Florence, North Charleston, Yemassee, and ends in Savannah, SAV. Two trains run, well, two trains plus the auto train run from the Northeast to Florida. You've got the Silver Star, which takes the route of the Carolinian as far as Cary, North Carolina, CYN, and then turns south and goes through Southern Pines, Hamlet, Camden, Columbia, Denmark, and then rejoins the other route in Savannah, then continues south through Florida, through Jacksonville, Palatka, DeLand, Winter Park, Orlando, Kissimmee, and then it goes west at a place called Auburndale, which is where a bunch of tracks come together under a highway bridge or highway overpass, and goes towards Tampa. It actually backs into Tampa, so you see the conductor directing the train from the rear, backing into Tampa Station. And then pulls straight out, goes back to Auburndale, turns south, and goes to Miami. There's another train called the Silver Meteor. Its entire route's already drawn, and that goes New York to Miami, but it does not go through Tampa. It goes straight through Auburndale, and it goes through Charleston, as opposed to through Raleigh. The auto train runs from Lorton, L-O-R, which is already at this spot on the map, to Sanford over here, S-F-A, just north of Orlando, and passengers with vehicles can ride that train. Other trains to the south, you have the Crescent, which goes from New York to New Orleans. It takes the route of the Northeast Regional trains going to Roanoke as far as Lynchburg, L-Y-H, before continuing south and rejoining the route of the Carolinian at Greensboro, G-R-O, then going through Charlotte to Greenville, Toccoa, Gainesville, Atlanta, Anniston, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Meridian, Hattiesburg, Picayune, Slidell, and going across Lake Pontchartrain, where you're on a causeway with great views on either side of the water, ending at New Orleans Union Passenger Terminal, N-O-L. You have other routes going out of New Orleans. If you go north out of New Orleans, you go along the west side of Lake Pontchartrain, and you go through Hammond, Louisiana, Macomb, Mississippi, Brookhaven, Hazelhurst, Jackson, Yazoo City, Greenwood, Memphis, Tennessee, New Bern, Dyersburg, Fulton, Kentucky, Carbondale, Champaign-Urbana, Kankakee, and ending in Chicago, C-H-I. That's a train called the City of New Orleans. There's a famous song about that train. You also have the Lakeshore Limited, which goes out of Chicago and goes to South Bend, Elkhart, Waterloo, Bryan, Toledo, Sandusky, Elyria, Cleveland, Erie, Buffalo, Depew Station in New York, across the cities on the I-90 corridor. That would be Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Schenectady, Albany, Rensselaer, Rensselaer being the train station for Albany on the east side of the river, in the town of Rensselaer, and then the train splits. Half the train, or most of the train, goes down to New York along the Hudson River. This is a great scenic part of the route. Looking out the west side of the train, you see river for 141 miles practically, and then the other part of the train goes through Massachusetts, Berkshire Mountains, Pittsfield, Springfield, and then through the rest of the state of Massachusetts to Boston South Station. There's also a train called the Capital Limited, Chicago to Cleveland, and after Cleveland it splits and goes south to Alliance, Pittsburgh, Connellsville, Cumberland. It goes through West Virginia. It actually crosses right through Harper's Ferry National Park, and you can see it, the train tracks from there, and it goes through Maryland suburbs, right by where we are, to Washington. Between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, PGH, that's not the airport code, that's the train station code, of course. You've got the Pennsylvanian, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, onto New York. You also have many daily Keystone service trains from Harrisburg through Philadelphia to New York. Other trains in New York State, you've got the Adirondack, which just after the platform ends in Schenectady, SDY, you can see the switch from the platform. You turn north and go on a very scenic ride, again, along Lake Champlain to Montreal, MTR. And another train goes on along part of that route. Just before the Whitehall station, it turns east and goes to Rutland, Vermont, R-U-D. Another route is the Maple Leaf, which follows the route of Lakeshore Limited from New York to Buffalo to Depew, Then it goes to Niagara Falls and actually becomes a Via Rail Canada train when it enters Canada and ends in Toronto, which is station code TWL. There's another train, the Vermonter, starting in St. Albans, Vermont, just on this side of the Canadian border. SAB goes through Burlington Essex Junction, goes through Waterbury Stowe, goes through Randolph, goes through White River Junction, goes through Brattleboro, goes through Northampton, or Greenfield, Northampton, Holyoke, through Springfield, SPG. There's not really enough room to write it there. Maybe I can try. And then it goes through Hartford and into New Haven, where it joins the Northeast Corridor to go south to Washington, D.C. Then you have Midwest services. So you've got the Pure Marquette train, which leaves from Chicago and goes out to Grand Rapids, GRR. You also have, branching off from the Lakeshore Limited and Capital Limited route in Porter, Indiana, the Wolverine Corridor, which goes to Detroit and then turns north, goes through the Detroit suburbs of Royal Oak, Troy, and ending in Pontiac, PNT. And you have the Blue Water, which goes through Lansing, Flint, and ending in Port Huron, PTH. So that's Michigan. You've got some other Midwest trains. You actually, in addition to the City of New Orleans, have two other trains a day, the Illini and the Saluki, which run to Carbondale, Illinois, CDL. You have the Lincoln service, which goes south to St. Louis, Missouri, STL. You've got the Missouri River Runner, which goes across Missouri to Kansas City, KCY. You've got the three routes, actually, that go west across the state to Galesburg, GBB. And it's GBB because it's the former Burlington Railroad station in Galesburg. There used to be two, but after the Burlington Northern Santa Fe merger, they merged to one station in Galesburg. And so you can take that train and go down to Quincy, QCY. Mommy's got a friend who lives in Quincy. You can also take the Southwest Chief, which goes through just the southeastern tip of Iowa, Fort Madison, right after it crosses the Mississippi River. Goes through La Plata, crosses the Missouri River in Sibley, goes through Kansas City, and then you got Lawrence, Topeka, Newton, Hutchinson, Dodge City, Garden City, Lamar, Colorado, La Junta, Trinidad, goes through Raton Pass, stops in Raton, where the Boy Scout camp for Philmont station stop is. Goes through Las Vegas, New Mexico, not to be confused with the gambling city. It's the small town where Tim McGraw filmed the song, or the music video for the song Everywhere, Las Vegas, New Mexico's train station. Goes through Lamy, which is the stepping off point for Santa Fe. Big station stop in Albuquerque, Gallup, Winslow, Arizona, another place made famous by a song. Flagstaff, Kingman, Needles, Barstow, Victorville, and it goes down, you're going down El Cajon Pass, San Bernardino, Fullerton, Riverside, Fullerton, ending in Los Angeles, LAX. Another train from the south to the southwest is the Sunset Limited, and that takes a little bit of a northerly route through the LA suburbs, crisscrosses the Southwest Chief route just south of the San Bernardino station, but stops in Ontario and Pomona, not San Bernardino. Goes through Palm Springs, Yuma, goes through the southern suburbs of Phoenix at Maricopa, Tucson, Benson, Lordsburg, Deming, El Paso, Alpine, Sanderson, Del Rio, San Antonio, Houston, Beaumont, and on to New Orleans. So I'll put in Houston here and San Antonio here. San Antonio, a coach and a sleeping car drop off, and go on to the Texas Eagle, which is a train that starts out in San Antonio and goes north to Fort Worth, FTW, and then on through Dallas, Longview, or Mineola, Longview, Marshall, Texarkana. Station stops in two states at the same time, right on the border. Hope, Arkansas, where Bill Clinton's from. Little Rock, Walnut Ridge, and it goes on to St. Louis and on to Chicago. Another train you can take from Fort Worth north to Oklahoma City is called the Heartland Flyer. It connects with the Texas Eagle. And a few other routes. We've got the California Zephyr, also splitting at Galesburg. This one goes through the rest of Iowa. Burlington, Mount Pleasant, Ottumwa, Osceola, Creston, Omaha into Nebraska, of course, Lincoln, Hastings, Holdridge, McCook, Fort Morgan, Colorado, Denver. And then after Denver, you wake up, leave Denver about 8:05 in the morning, 8:10 in the morning. You got a beautiful day of scenery going through the Rocky Mountains. You're going through Winter Park, Granby. You're going through Glenwood Canyon, Glenwood Springs, Grand Junction, and through the Ruby Canyon and into the Bolt Cliffs of Utah, Green River. I believe that's the town from Fievel goes west where they take the train to. Helper, Provo, Salt Lake City, and then west through Elko, Winnemucca, and this is through the night. Elko and Winnemucca and Reno. And then the next morning you're in Reno, and you spend the next day going through the High Sierra, California, also very beautiful mountain scenery, through Sacramento, SAC, and into the Bay Area. You are on the East Bay, and the train ends at EMY, which is Emeryville, California, which is right on the eastern edge of, or eastern base of the Bay Bridge, and buses meet the train and will take people across into San Francisco proper. Another cross-country trip is the Empire Builder. Aaron, you're going on that with Mommy soon. Empire Builder, you're going up Chicago to Milwaukee, MKE. And between Chicago and Milwaukee, there are 7 Hiawatha service trains a day each way, in addition to the Empire Builder. After Milwaukee, you turn west and you go through Wisconsin Dells, Portage, Winona, Minnesota, La Crosse, Wisconsin, then Winona, Minnesota, Red Wing, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Actually, it's St. Paul, Union Depot, or Spud. You go through St. Cloud, Staples, the town, not the office supply store, Fargo, Grand Forks. You're going through Devil's Lake, Minot, Williston, Wolf Point, Malta, Glasgow, Havre, Shelby. After Cut Bank, the scenery gets a little bit more mountainous. You go across a very big trestle just west of the Cut Bank station. Your train turns west after facing north at Cut Bank and goes across the trestle, and then you're going through the mountains of Glacier Park, multiple stations in the Glacier Park area, station Whitefish, stop in Sandpoint, Idaho, and at Spokane, Washington, the train splits. You've got half the train going through Ephrata, Wenatchee, Leavenworth, Everett, Edmonds, Seattle. The other half of the train goes down through Pasco, Wishram, Benjamin White Salmon, Vancouver, Washington, not to be confused with Vancouver, British Columbia, and ends in Portland, PDX. Now, going north out of Portland and also actually north out of Eugene, you have a train called the Cascade Service, which is supported by the states of Oregon and Washington. Eugene, Portland, Seattle, and on to Vancouver, British Columbia. Different number of trains a day in each of those segments. You have one train a day that goes south of Eugene called the Coast Starlight, starts in Seattle, Portland, Eugene, Chemult, Klamath Falls, Dunsmuir, Redding, Chico, Sacramento, goes through the Bay Area. After Emeryville, continues on, stops in Oakland, Jack London Square. That's a beautiful part of Oakland, right on the water. Some nice restaurants nearby. And then it goes inland through farm country, and then comes down Cuesta Grade to San Luis Obispo, SLO, where you go along the water. And from San Luis Obispo to Santa Barbara, you're along the ocean, beautiful stretch of coast. And then, of course, from Santa Barbara to LA, you're going through the LA suburbs, basically. Maybe not all the way out to Santa Barbara, but once you get further in. And then there are trains from San Luis Obispo, South LA, on to San Diego. Those are the Pacific Surfliners. And those follow the same routes as Southwest Chief as far as Fullerton, FUL, and you turn south and go to San Diego. There's also some nice running along the ocean on that train as well. You also have an inland route, the San Joaquin Corridor, which goes from Oakland through Emeryville and a place called Martinez, MTZ, as well as from Sacramento, and it goes down through Fresno and ends in Bakersfield, BFD, except it doesn't actually end in Bakersfield. The train ends in Bakersfield, but when you get to Bakersfield, there's a whole army of buses that meet the train at the train platform. There's a huge bus terminal at the station, and they fan out throughout all of Southern California, so there's quite a robust network of service no matter where you're going in California with that route. So we've got pretty much the entire network here, and as you can see, the map's already starting to get crowded, except for one thing. I did not put one route in there, and that is the Cardinal. Cardinal branches off from the Crescent route after Culpeper, Virginia. It takes a different route through Charlottesville, but the two routes intersect at the Amtrak station in Charlottesville, and it goes into West Virginia, and now it stops in Stanton, spelled Staunton, pronounced Stanton, Virginia, and then it goes into West Virginia, White Sulphur Springs, the home of the Greenbrier Resort. You've got Prince, which is the stop for the Boy Scout Ranch nearby. You've got the stops in Charleston and Huntington, and then you go into Kentucky along the South Shore of the Ohio River. In fact, one of the stations is South Portsmouth, South Shore, Kentucky. And then you cross into Ohio at Cincinnati, and you go through Indiana, Indianapolis, and go into Chicago that way. So, do we have any other routes that we need to put in here? I think we've got them all. Alright, well, the map is getting crowded, so I don't know how much of this I'll actually be able to do, but since I probably won't be able to fit everything in, I'll do the long-distance trains, shall we? So let's see, what time is it? 3:46 p.m., but that's 3:46 Eastern Time. Which means that it's 2:46 in Chicago, which means that it's 1:46 in Montana, which means that it's 12:46 on the West Coast. So, since I can't fit everything on here, I'll do the long-distance trains and see if there's anything else I can still squeeze in. Long-distance trains, 3:46 p.m. You're going to have train 49, the westbound Lakeshore Limited, just getting ready to leave New York Penn Station. You're going to have eastbound train 48, Lakeshore Limited, just having left Albany Rensselaer, so we'll put that there. You're going to have had the Crescent, should be just coming out of Philadelphia, so that's going to be train 19. And an hour behind that, so somewhere in the New Jersey suburbs, maybe around Metro Park, but it doesn't stop in Metro Park, it's passing through at 90 miles an hour around Metro Park. You have train 97, southbound Silver Meteor, but that's Silver Meteor that started today. The Silver Meteor that started yesterday is still running, and that train is going to be somewhere on the stretch between Winter Haven and West Palm Beach. And actually the Silver Star, train 91 that started yesterday, is going to be about 40 minutes ahead of it, 91. The Silver Star that started today is going to be just south of Washington, going through the Virginia suburbs, so probably somewhere around Woodbridge. Again, it doesn't stop there, but probably just passing through. So that's going to be 91. 92, the northbound from yesterday, that started in Miami yesterday, is on the Northeast Corridor now, going through Maryland, probably somewhere around Baltimore, or maybe Wilmington, that area, so that's 92. The train 98 that started yesterday is already in New York. Train 89, the Palmetto, that started in New York early this morning, is going to be about 90 minutes south of Wilson, because about 90 minutes ago the northbound and southbound Palmettos met around Wilson. So that would probably put it somewhere around the North Carolina-South Carolina border, maybe somewhere between Fayetteville and Dillon. So I'll put down 89. The northbound, that would put the northbound 90 on the long stretch between Rocky Mount and Petersburg, Virginia. At 3:46, there's no auto trains moving per the schedule. Sometimes on a really, really good day, when all the passengers in their cars have been loaded early, you might have an auto train beginning to move out of the terminal by this point, but not in the schedule. Because the cars and passengers are required to be at the station by about 2:30. So if the crews get the train loaded very quickly, they can do that a little bit earlier. Capital Limited, there is no Capital Limited right now. There is train 29 boarding passengers in Washington right now, but the eastbound train 30 has not left the yard in Chicago yet, and so there's none there. 3:46 Eastern, 2:46 Central means that you're probably going to have train 20 that started today in New Orleans somewhere around Birmingham, maybe just east of Birmingham, and then you're going to have train 19 that is left New York yesterday, would be just about to cross into Mississippi at this point, probably somewhere between Tuscaloosa and Meridian, if it's running on time. Now, the city of New Orleans, the train with the famous song, you've got the southbound train just coming into New Orleans. That's going to be train 59. Northbound train by now probably crossing into Mississippi, so that's going to be 58. And on the north end, the train sets in Chicago, being turned around for an 8 o'clock departure tonight or thereabouts. Northbound on the Texas Eagle side of the house, you've got, let's see, 246 Central probably means you're looking at both 21 and 22 being roughly somewhere kind of near Dallas-Fort Worth. I would say 22 is probably in Fort Worth, 21 is probably a little bit past Fort Worth by now. And then, yes, today's train 21 should just have left Chicago about an hour ago. The hour, maybe two. You've got 246, you're going to have a train 6 just about coming into Chicago, making that left turn, coming off the old BN racetrack and through the yards into the station. You probably also got train 4, the Southwest Chief, that started in LA 2 days ago, not too far behind it. Westbound California Zephyr should already be going through the Chicago suburbs, probably just cleared Aurora. I believe that's 2 p.m. Chicago, 2:35 or so Naperville, so it's probably just west of Aurora. That would be train number 5. Train 5 that started yesterday is going to be going through the Rocky Mountains right now. 1:46 p.m. Mountain Time probably puts the train somewhere around Glenwood Springs, Colorado, maybe on the Glenwood Springs Grand Junction stretch. And actually, train 6 is not going to be too far away at that point either. So 5 and 6 are over there. You also have a trains 5 and 6 that started, or train 5 that started 2 days ago, still twisting and turning through the High Sierra in the Sierra Nevada, so that's going to be train 5. And a train 6 that's probably meeting it right around now at a siding, also in the High Sierra, the one that started in Emeryville today. Southwest Chiefs, you have 2 trains in New Mexico at the moment. 1:46 p.m. Mountain Time means you're going to have a train about 90 minutes east of Albuquerque. That's going to be train 4. You're going to have train 3 also nearby, so actually 4 and 3 are not going to be too far away from each other. And on the West Coast, the train that is being serviced in LA in between trips right now. Empire Builder, you're going to have a train about a half hour north of Chicago, so probably somewhere around Glenview. That's going to be train 7. Train 8 is probably just coming into Milwaukee right now. And then, of course, the trains that originated in Chicago, Portland, and Seattle yesterday, you're going to have, let's see, they're going to be in Montana right now. 1:46 p.m. Mountain Time is kind of close to the time the 2 trains meet, somewhere around between Shelby and Havre, or around Havre, roughly. So I'll just do 7 and 8. And then, of course, the trains on the West Coast are already being turned around. Coast Starlight up and down the West Coast, you're going to have train at 12:46. You'd have train 14, which started in LA today, somewhere around Santa Barbara, SBA. Train 11 is probably still probably somewhere around Salinas or maybe Paso Robles. So that's going to be 11. And then yesterday's, those are the trains that are in California today. Train 14 that originated yesterday in LA is twisting and turning its way through the Cascade Mountains. Maybe it's gotten to Eugene, but it's somewhere around there. While train 11, which started in Seattle today, is just coming into Portland. A few other trains that I may not have mentioned. You've got the Cardinals, depending on the day of the week. They run 3 days a week. Cardinals, depending on 3 days a week. 3:46 Eastern Time would mean you'd have a train. Well, they're not too far away from where they met, which would have been west of Charlottesville. So you're going to have 51 and 50. Maybe they met around Crozet or Ivy or something like that. And then, of course, other days you'd have a Cardinal that would be in Chicago turning around. Sunset Limited, depending on the day, 9 a.m. out of New Orleans would put the train probably somewhere about to cross, train number 1 about to cross into Texas. Train 2 at this hour would probably actually be around Beaumont going east. And then, let's see, 1:46 Mountain Time would probably put train 1 around El Paso, depending on the day of the week again. Train 2 would be probably somewhere eastern New Mexico, or somewhere in southern New Mexico, I should say. So let's see, I've got the Lakeshore, Capital, Star, Meteor, Palmetto, Auto Trains accounted for. I've got the Crescent. I've got the City New Orleans, Sunset Limited, Texas Eagle, Southwest Chief. I've got the California Zephyr. I've got the Empire Builder. I've got the Coast Starlight. I've got the Cardinal. I think I've got all the long distance trains. I could probably tell you where most of the other trains are, but there's no more room here for them. I'll just put a few random ones in there. So 3:46 p.m. Eastern Time, you probably got an Adirondack Train 69, getting pretty close to the Canadian border, but not quite there yet. Or could be getting close. You got 68. 68 at this point is probably somewhere around Whitehall or Fort Ticonderoga. You've got it's still about like 90 minutes north of Albany, so maybe a little bit closer to Fort Edwards. Vermonters, you're going to have train 56 north of Springfield already. 56, 55 is on the Connecticut River line on a normal day. You'd have, let's find a few other good ones to put in. Now, no Heartland Flyer right now because that train's going to be sitting in Fort Worth, turning around right now. Let's pick a few others. So, Carolinian, you're going to have a train 80 just coming into, or train 79, excuse me, just coming into Raleigh. You're going to have a train 80 north of Richmond by now, so I'll put 80 there. Pennsylvanian, 3:46 by this time, train 42 is already on the northeast corridor heading east, 42, while train 43 is just gone west of Harrisburg heading west. Let's see what else is going on here. No Blue Water or Pure Marquette in play right now because they're both in Chicago. You'd have around, let's see, you'd have the train 350, 355 trains that's probably in Pontiac right now. Train 352 left Chicago about 2 hours ago, so that would probably put it somewhere around here. 352, so I'll just put that down there. You've got, let's see, what else do we have here? So, and then maybe I'll say 3:46, you've got train 64 somewhere around here. That's the train from Toronto to New York. Train 63 is coming up, is around Niagara Falls. So, okay, I think that's about as good as we can do for now without getting the map too crowded. So, anyway, hope that was enjoyable. It looks like the baby is falling asleep, which was intended. So, hopefully I did not put you to sleep, but hope you were able to find this somewhat educational, and ooh, his eyes are opening again. Maybe I need